Alrighty, a new flavor of dessert for the morning crew. I hope that you enjoy the num-nums, and if you happen to be a time traveler from some other time, you can enjoy the num-nums too. I just want to give a quick thanks to the Tier 5 channel members and Patreons: Bob the Dragon, Data Magnet, Cat Crab Lobster, Duck Machine, Try Again 95, and Estrella the Dreamer. Thank you all very, very much. The Care and Feeding of Humans, Part 1, written by Really Not Michael's Mom. There are a number of expeditions that are classed as dangerous enough to need humans on the team. This book is designed to walk you through caring and feeding humans so that when you arrive at your expedition, your humans will be happy and healthy enough to keep you safe. Guidebook Review of the Ontological Species Studies, The Care and Feeding of Humans Introduction, published by Glass and Steel, The Care of Feeding of Humans. Translation Engine 3.14159. Nerif scrolled through the catalogue of available to hire. The long Zanadian tried to act as though she'd done this many times, while at the same time enjoying the bubbling of excitement that she'd felt inside. She was finally getting to work with a human. She'd been fascinated with them since she was a child, and had read everything that she could find about them. But this was her first time going on an expedition that required hiring not one, not two, but 3 humans. She marked her selection while watching her total change in the corner of the page. Higher skill set human costs more, obviously. She needed to balance the needs of her team with the budget she'd been given. She finally settled on 2 males with average skills, well, average for humans, and 1 female with a really excellent skill set. The only reason the expedition would be able to afford someone with her skills is that she was damaged. The catalog didn't go into details about the damage, only indicating the loss of the right arm and some personality damage from previous assignments. Nerif shivered in secret delight. Truth be told, the opportunity to work with a damaged human was even beyond her dreams. That she could explain to the team about the value she'd gotten and not have to reveal how this fell into her own plans made it perfect. She sent the requests along with the funds and the ship berth designation, and then headed back to the report. She held herself with the long fingers wrapping around her waist. She felt like she might explode with excitement and held herself together in case her imagination became a reality. She was a highly imaginative being and liked to imagine that her thoughts could make things so. The next morning, she stepped into the hold holding her morning stimulant. She didn't need it this morning, but sipped anyway, trying to look as though this morning were no different than any other run. The 2 human males showed up first, and Nerif could feel any chance of playing it cool just slipping away. "Hi, I'm Nerif. You must be the 2 of our new humans." She could feel the feathers on her head raising in excitement, and hoped the humans didn't know as much about her as she did about them. The 2 humans smiled and nodded in agreement. Smiled! She got to see them smile. If it hadn't been so undignified in being of her age and status, Nerif would have made a squeeze sound the very young Lemniads made. Well, the humans did pull their lips back and expose their teeth. She noticed the skin around their eyes didn't wrinkle. So, it wasn't a true smile, just a polite gesture. Her hair dropped a little with disappointment, but she reminded herself that this was only the first meeting, not a true meeting. The humans didn't seem to be armed, which was also a disappointment after hearing so many stories about how they loved their weapons. But Nerif mocked herself and pointed out that they could hardly be expected to walk around with their guns waving in the air. "I'm Alan, and this handsome guy here is Nate," one of the humans said. Alan's coloration was unusual for humans, according to Nerif's research. He was so pale that she suddenly understood why humans labeled the skin color as white. His hair was a color that she couldn't quite place, but didn't qualify as red unless humans had more color defects in their eyesight than her research had taught her. Nate's skin was also called white by humans, though much darker than Alan's skin color. She began to lean towards the color deficit theory. His hair was more common brown, the color of a kiwi bird's wings after a molt. She held out her hands in excitement. Finally, a chance to participate in a human greeting ritual, and said, "Pleased to meet you." Alan shook her hand as she had expected, but Nate took a little longer and switched his bag from his left hand to his right so that he could shake her with the left hand. Alan and Nate exchanged discreet glances and small smiles that didn't actually reach their eyes, and Narif was delighted that the greeting had attained true greeting status. After shaking their hands exactly 2.5 times, she released their grip and said, "We have one more human that should be arriving. After you have a chance to unpack your goods in your quarters, the entire ship will be meeting for a final briefing in the common area." "Oh?" Alan raised an eyebrow at her, and Narif found herself fascinated over the facial muscle control that allowed him to do that. She dug through her memory of the human facial trivia and remembered an uplifted eyebrow could mean curiosity, doubt, and sometimes humor. "Who else is joining the team?" "A female human named Zoe. Do you know her?" Narif said. Alan shook his head. "Never heard of her before." "You're both human," Narif said. "Not quite a protest." "Us and a few billion other people," Nate cut in. He swung his bag over his shoulder. "Not all of your people know each other, do you?" Narif hesitated, not sure how to reply. She could name any of the people in sight, but didn't mean that she had met even a small percentage of them, and it was rude to name people before you heard a true greeting. She wondered if "never heard of her" was a human expression about not having had a true greeting yet. "Ah, of course," she said. "Now, could you show us to our bunks?" Nate asked. "Bunks?" Narif repeated with the odd word. Her people prided themselves on their linguistic skills, and it hadn't occurred to her that she might need a translator. Her feathers flattened in embarrassment. "He means our quarters. Nobody calls them bunks anymore except space cowboys," Alan put in. "Space cowboys?" Narif repeated, a little hesitantly. "Cowboys are an archaic job of guarding cows from thieves and predators, like direwolf. Why would there be cowboys in space? Cows and their predators can't live there." "Exactly," Alan said, as though she had proved the point he'd been making. "But, direwolves, they died out a few thousand years before cowboys started working." "But I'd read it in a novel, The Old Man and the Call of the Wild, about the author's battle of direwolves in the plains and mountains of, Canada," she protested. "Oh, Canada." Alan and Nate exchanged those small smiles again. "Wasn't thinking about Canada." Narif felt a moment of relief that her research hadn't let her down, and her feathers responded with a small lift. She turned and gestured one of the droids over. "If you'll please give this unit your bags, it'll take you to your quarters, your bunks." She added the new term carefully. She waved goodbye to Alan and Nate as they left the cargo hold, an energetic gesture that involved flapping your hands back and forth, according to videos that she had researched. "Seems like a good kid," Nate said as they walked away. "And she loves her some human pulp fiction," Alan agreed. End of chapter. And that, my friends, concludes this video. I hope